Hello, my name is Nathan Morris. I'm a teacher at Alberton Public School and I teach CAD, CAM, robotics, woodworking, welding, and whatever else the year throws my way. So this year I'm going to be making some instructional videos for Onshape. This is a little bit new for me. I come from a Fusion background and have some videos about that. And we'll be doing a mix of Fusion and Onshape in my CAD CAM class. The reasons I'm moving into Onshape, for some newer students especially, is I've been learning about all of its collaborative capabilities, and it is web native, so it'll run on pretty much any device, even student Chromebooks. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and get started in the first assignment that I'm creating for students. So this is just teaching a little bit about the fundamentals of how to make a sketch in Onshape. So here we are. I'm creating a new document. I'm going to call it the 2.1 first sketch L bracket. Now, if you're in my class, I've created an assignment for this already. So you would just find that over in your classes or your alert notifications, and then go to the assignment from there, and it would automatically create the document. But if you're just creating your own document, you can click that. A few things about this interface. We have this view cube up here, which is pretty handy. Coming over from Fusion, so I'm used to clicking and dragging on that. But if you click on the different faces, you can navigate there. If you middle mouse click, if you have a dedicated mouse, you can rotate your view. And then if you are holding shift and middle mouse clicking, it'll zoom, or you can scroll. I think there are, for a touchpad, there are some other similar controls. And then if you hold control while middle mouse clicking, it'll pan your view. So that's kind of handy. So yeah, you can rotate and see your view from all sides. So I'm gonna go back to click this corner, so I go back to kind of the default view. And what I'm gonna be going over in this video is creating a new sketch. So the new sketch button is right up here. Now, coming from Fusion and a little bit cleaner interface, I don't like having these three planes visible all the time. So I could hide it right now by just doing it over in this feature tree to the left. I can just click the little eye thing to hide them. Now I have a much cleaner interface. That's kind of my personal preference. You could also do it after you create your first sketch, or you could leave them on all the time. It's up to you. So I'm going to create a sketch, and now I need to select the sketch plane. Well, they're all gone now, right? So if I had left them on, I could have just hovered over one and clicked it. But I am going to show you another way. You could also just select it in the feature tree here. So I'm going to click on the front plane. That's going to be kind of the standard for most of these. Now, also coming over, at least in the education version of Onshape that I have, coming over to Fusion, there's not an option to like automatically make it look at the sketch plane when you create it. So you can click on the front of the view cube here to kind of square that up. Or another hotkey I learned is that if you hit the N button, that means normal to, and it'll automatically make your view perpendicular to the sketch plane that you are currently editing. So you can always just hit the hotkey of N and jumps you into that view. So we're going to be making an L bracket, and you can see over on, well, in the overlay, sorry if I'm looking at my other screen, but you can see in the overlay that it is just a very simple shape just to get us started. So we have this little dot in the middle of the screen. It's called the origin, and I'm going to start off creating this L bracket. Okay, so a few things. One, if I click, so I selected the line tool up here, you can hit L, If I hover vertically, it shows this little like vertical line. That means it's locking this line in with a vertical constraint. That's called a constraint. And constraints help to fully define your sketch. And that's what we're going to be shooting for in all of our sketches. We want to make sure they're fully defined. So when we're all done with this, it'll be black, signifying it's fully defined. So if I do that, I can kind of hover here, make sure it's snapping to vertical. I can click, and then at this point, it'll have me about ready to create another thing, but you can also see that the number box here is in white. That shows that I can actually start typing here. So I can hit 75 and hit enter, and it'll automatically lock that dimension as 75. Now in my assignment, the instructions say don't bother adding the dimensions at first. It is a little bit fiddly to make sure you do it after that first click, and then before you click or hit anything else. If I accidentally like hit escape or something, oh no, I've lost the dimension. Not to worry, we can go back and add dimensions later. We can either use this tool right up here, or we can hit the D key and then select this, or select it and then hit the D key, and that will allow us to add a dimension here. So this one is supposed to be 50. Now notice these lines are blue. Okay, that means they are not fully defined. I want them to be black to be fully defined. Okay, so as we go through the shape, we want it all to be black. The reason they're not black right now is because I can't change their size relative to each other, and they're locked vertically and horizontally, but they're just floating in free space right now. Okay, so there needs to be some sort of anchor point. Well, that's what this origin is good for. Okay, so you should always tie one part of your sketch to the origin. It doesn't really matter where, it's all personal preference. So I'm going to actually at this point drag this point to the origin, and now it automatically snaps, and now notice everything is black. Okay, so the notice I'm spilling off this like blue rectangle area. It really doesn't matter. That's just kind of a guideline to kind of show you the plane that the sketch is in, especially if you're in a different view. But again, hitting N to get back to the normal view, then I can keep sketching my L bracket. Okay. Oh, notice this. I missed the endpoint there. So I'm going to hit escape, hit L again, and go back and start at that point. You got to make sure you're hovering over that point and it has a square before you click. Okay, so I'm going to click these through. Again, I can add dimensions now, or I can just add them later. Now, this point, okay, there's a few different options for this one, okay? Because if I click somewhere here and I'm not fixing all my dimensions exactly, it's not wanting to make sure that it's even with this, okay? But if I hover over this point and then I come back over here, it'll automatically drop this dotted line over. And so it'll want to make it even. You can even see the little dash and the vertical line to the bottom right. Those are constraints. So it's saying that this endpoint I'm making is vertical with the point below, or the line in fact is vertical. But then it also has the horizontal constraint. Sorry, my lights go off behind me. Has the horizontal constraint to constrain it in line with that other top point. So I'll click that and click here. So now that was one way to do it, but I'm going to hit Control Z. You can always undo in these CAD programs, whether it's Fusion, Onshape, or others. Pretty much works like most programs. You can hit Control Z or hit the undo button up here, or Command Z if you're on a Mac. So then I will try this again another way. I'm going to do this vertically, and I'm going to create this line purposely slanted. Okay, but then I can select this horizontal constraint up here. So it's the flat line, and I can click on that line and it'll lock it in horizontally. Okay, pretty cool. All right, I still have these two blue lines because I haven't added in some constraints that I need, namely dimensions. Okay, so I'm going to add dimensions. I'm going to hit D and then select this line, and you have to click where you want the dimension to sit. That's just the little label. So I'm going to make this 15 and hit enter, and then I'm going to not click this one. the actual reason it's blue isn't because we don't know the height, it's because we don't know the width of this portion. So this portion is supposed to be 15 as well. Okay, so with that, we have our L shape, and it's all black. It's fully defined. That's what we want. So now we're going to create a circle. We can select from the options up here. We're going to do center point circle, which is the default on the bar. You can also just hit C hotkey. And now we're just going to create a circle somewhere in this area in the upper L part. The point of this is just to kind of get used to doing these shapes and adding in some dimensions and constraints. Very simple. But if you're new to it and I'm going too fast, let me know in the comments or in class and I'll help you. So I'm going to create this circle. I clicked somewhere in the middle there. I can kind of move it to different sizes. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to click. And now I can type the dimension, or I can come back later and hit dimension and then select it. And this has this little symbol in front of it. I don't know if you can see that, but it is like a 0 with a line through it. That's called, I believe, a phi, maybe a theta. But anyway, that's the engineering symbol for diameter. Okay, if it was a radius, it would show an R before it. Remember, radius is the distance from the center to the outside of the circle, and diameter, this symbol, goes all the way across. And it actually looks like a circle with a line going all the way across, so it's kind of a good visual cue. I think that's why they picked it. So this hole is supposed to be 10 millimeters in diameter. By the way, I probably should have mentioned this well sooner, but if you are seeing like some huge shapes and stuff, maybe because your units are in inches, all of these dimensions here in this project are using millimeters. So you can change that in your, actually in your name. If you click your name up here, somewhere here is, I might have to find that later, but you can change your settings, maybe workspace units actually right here. Yeah. And you should set millimeters as your default length unit. I use millimeters when I'm doing more engineering and robotics type stuff, and I use inches when I'm doing more woodworking type stuff. The US is a mess for as far as not sticking to certain standards. We're kind of starting to follow the rest of the world a little bit with millimeters, but we're going to use millimeters for the most part in this class. Now, when I actually go to measure something in real life and try and recreate it, my calipers happen to be in inches and I work in thousandths, so I'll probably swap then. But for the assignments for this kind of thing, I like to be in millimeters. But when you add a dimension, by the way, I closed out of the sketch when I did that, so I can double click on sketch 1 here, and it brings me back into editing this. So if I was to double click on this dimension, see it says 10 mm. I could also set it to 10 in for inches. You can actually do that, and you can see the difference in scale, right? And it automatically converts, since my units are in millimeters, in inches equal to 254 millimeters, or 25.4. Oh, well, an inch is 25.4 millimeters, and this was 10 inches, so 254. And then, or 2.54 centimeters. So anyway, we want this to be 10 millimeters, so we could type that. It's our default, so we wouldn't have to type mm. I've just been entering the numbers. So there's that, but then it's still blue. We need to fix it relative to the L bracket. So there's ways we could get it centered and stuff. We're not going to cover those right now. I'm just going to hit D for dimension right up here. Select the center point and select the left wall. And I want it to be half of 15, so I'm going to do 7.5 and hit enter. Again, you can drag where these dimension bars are. And I'm going to also go from the center to the top, and I want that to be 20, I believe. Yes, 20. So if you followed along, you now have a complete, fully defined sketch with the hole. This could be like a hole for a screw or something, and an L bracket. probably not quite realistic dimensions for if you were to make this in real life, but it's a good first sketch just to get a hang of how the lines, you could have used rectangles too with this, but you'd end up with some extra lines. You could use the trim tool then. There's a lot more you can do with sketches that we'll get into in the future. But yeah, just using lines and circle tool and then some dimensions and constraints. You can also apply other constraints, which we'll get into in the future as well. So I hope this helps you understand how to go through these steps. If you hit the check mark here, it closes out of that sketch. And now that sketch is done. In the future, you could start extruding it, doing different 3D operations. But for now, we're just working on sketches, just getting the hang of this interface and program. And maybe you're new to CAD and kind of need a little bit slower steps. So if that's the case, here you go. Here's a good first assignment. And then we'll be doing more along these lines in the future. I won't make more videos for this. I'll move on to other concepts, but I'll have some assignments for making similar shapes. All right, well, with that, I'll wrap it up. Thanks for watching.